and welcome back to my channel. This is episode number 10 of the Globalization series over here on my channel. Today we're going to be looking at rising tensions. If this is your first time here, hey, I'm Lara. I am a second year geography and education student, and I'm making these because it's exactly what I wanted during my A-levels. I wanted someone to spell it all out for me. At the end of this series I am going to do like an hour-long, just kind of very brief touch and go thing on globalization. If you like that, please do let me know in the comments, and also let me know what topic you'd like me to do next. I'm thinking either coasts or regenerating places, so please let me know down below what you'd prefer. And yeah, I'm just gonna get straight on into this because my camera battery is already flashing at me, and so hopefully this won't be too long. This is the second to last episode. Please do subscribe. I upload these every single week. I'll link either, I'll probably forget, but there's a playlist linked in the comments below of all, or on my channel somewhere, of all the geography videos that I've uploaded so far. So I've already done the tectonic processes and hazards unit, and the glaciated landscapes and change unit, and obviously this is the globalization one. I have all the previous topics, I guess, of globalization, so like the tensions, the TNCs, and globalization, localization, cultural diffusion, cultural erosion, that kind of thing. They're all already up on my channel in a playlist called like Globalization A-level revision. That's all I have to say. I'm gonna crack on with this because, you know, might as well. Rising tensions, globalization, let's go. London's melting pot. In July 2012, the London's Evening Standard newspaper ran a story about melting pot London. Data from the Office of National Statistics showed that in 2011, parents of 65% of the babies born in London had been born outside of the UK themselves. The UK average is 25%. Diversity is part of London's character. Journalists from the newspaper interviewed staff at North London's Whittington Hospital about a range of different nationalities using their maternity ward. That diversity is also true of staff. The maternity ward had a Chilean midwife, Jamaican and Polish nurses, and a Malaysian matron. London is a melting pot with residents from every country speaking almost every language. This growing diversity has been helped by several processes linking to globalization. Open borders. EU citizens are free to move around the EU as a right. For example, in 2015 there were about 250,000 French people living in London. Obviously this is slightly different now that we're no longer in the EU, but EU citizens are still free to move around. We as Brits are now not in the same way, but this isn't about Brexit. They also have the freedom to invest in businesses and transfer capital. For example, in the UK, any bank or individual can trade stocks and shares without having to use the London Stock Exchange. Individuals are free to invest without barriers. There are no restrictions for financial institutions in setting up offices, and no government approval is required. FDI. In 2015, the UK attracted over 32,000 jobs, mostly to London, from overseas owned companies investing in software and financial services. London also attracted 35% of all companies who moved their European headquarters to the UK. The UK also led the rest of Europe in attracting European research and development projects, and was the first choice for European project investments by US companies. It was also a leading recipient of FDI investment from France, Japan, Australia, Canada, India and Ireland. Processes like these and others with historical links such as the Commonwealth have led to a cultural mix. For instance, globalization has helped to establish diverse groups throughout the UK, from Polish communities in Lincolnshire to Latvian groups in Cornwall. In mainland Europe, France has a large North and West African communities from its former colonies, and Germany has a large Turkish population of over 3 million. This dispersal of people throughout the world has led to diasporas. That is, distributions of people away from their homeland. For example, the Jamaican diaspora consists of Jamaicans and those of Jamaican descent living in the USA, the UK, Canada, and the Central Americas such as Honduras. But there's another view. However, not everyone is happy about this globalisation and its effects. Freedom for some can impact adversely on others. Two big issues in relation to this are immigration, where some people dispute the right of others to move freely, and the distribution of resources such as water, where developing a resource in one country may have an impact on other countries, which regard that resource as shared. Immigration. International migration is controversial and can cause resentment in some people within host populations. Migrations have become victims of harassment, abuse, violence and exploitation. For example, tensions have been rising within the EU and also with its immediate neighbours. Extreme political parties such as Golden Dawn in Greece, the Northern League in Italy and France's National Front are becoming increasingly popular. Less extreme, although significant, are attitudes in the UK's tabloid press about immigration, particularly uncontrolled immigration. Since 2014, streams of refugees from Syria, as well as economic migrants from other countries, have caused tensions between Greece and other Balkan countries, which are the main points of entry to Northern Europe and Turkey. Trans-border water conflicts. The Mekong is one of Southeast Asia's major rivers, flowing 4,200 kilometres from China through Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia and Thailand to its delta in southern Vietnam. Since the 1990s, a number of dams have been built on the river or its tributaries, which have caused some controversy. A 1995 treaty, known as the Mekong River Agreement, required the governments of Cambodia, Laos, Thailand and Vietnam to all agree to any proposals for new dams before they go ahead. The treaty aimed to share the water allocations within the Mekong River Basin. The Xayaburi Dam in Laos is testing this agreement. Water taken from the river or its main tributaries in an upstream country will then affect the water flow downstream. In this case, Thailand, Cambodia and Vietnam. Laos benefits from the project in terms of employment and water, while Thailand receives the electricity generated by the dam and has financed it. In 2010, 11 more dams were proposed along the lower Mekong, 9 of them in Laos. Attempts to control globalisation. The theory of globalisation is based on classic economic freedoms known as liberalism. Its more recent form, a belief in free flows of people, capital, finance and resources, is known as neo or new liberalism. However, 3 examples show how neoliberalism may not always work in practice. The first, censorship. China is a single-party communist state. As such, globalisation represents a psychological challenge for its leadership. The free flow of information and ideas is perceived as a threat, and the Chinese government also looks nervously at control events like the Arab Spring, with its ideas about increasing democracy and less state control. In its own country, the Chinese government enforces the censorship on internet content, as well as all published material in order to retain control. There are 2 types of censorship. State controlled, such as the Chinese news, where print publishing or broadcasting via TV or radio is run by official state media. And then secondly, state monitored, where overseas contacts or media are monitored and censored, including TV, print media, radio, film, theatre, text messaging, video games, literature and the internet. The second example where neoliberalism might not work in practice, limiting immigration. Across Europe, Australia and the USA, there have been debates about migration controls. Right-wing candidates have referred to the topic in a range of countries. The most sensational was a proposal by Republican candidate Donald Trump during the 2016 US presidential election campaign to control the flow of immigrants from Mexico by building a high wall right along the US-Mexican border. Debates in the UK have focused on limiting net migration, difficult with flows from the EU, skills shortages in the knowledge economy, and a booming market in overseas university students. 2 arguments used by opponents of immigration are that cheap migrant labour undercuts local wages and that governments have not planned adequately for increased demands on welfare, healthcare, housing and education caused by the influx of migrants. And then 3, trade protectionism. The free market can be a challenge for national governments. In 2016, cheap Chinese steel was being dumped onto global markets at prices heavily subsidised by the Chinese government in order to protect its own manufacturers. The consequences were huge in the UK. The Indian owners of Tata Steel, the UK's largest steel manufacturer, which was losing £1 million a day, put all of its UK steel plants, such as Port Talbot, up for sale and threatened to close if a deal could not be arranged. A solution would have had to raise tariffs on imported steel to domestic producers, as the USA has done, but this was forbidden in World Trade Organization rules. Maintaining cultural identity. Rarely is the impact of globalisation more keenly felt than on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. In Canada, such peoples are referred to collectively as the First Nations. They consist of 643 recognised groups, together with Inuit and Métis. These Indigenous peoples had much of their land taken away from them during the colonial rule in the 18th and 19th centuries, and it was never returned. However, since the late 20th century, efforts have been made to acknowledge the rights of the First Nations and to make compensation payments. Many cases of resource exploitation in Canada have caused conflict with traditional communities, and the Canadian government has been accused of supporting TNCs against Indigenous landholders. In 2013, 6 out of 21 proposed resource projects were close to collapse because of projects from traditional communities. Their targets included fracking in New Brunswick, oil sands and shales mining in the Bakken project in Alberta, the Trans Mountain Pipeline between Alberta and Vancouver, and the Pacific Trails Pipeline. Canada's oil industry expects the government to settle claims about ownerships and royalties with First Nation representatives. However, conflicts such as these are likely to increase in the future, as increased resource exploitation results in companies exploring more remote regions and Indigenous lands. But I hope you learnt something, I hope you enjoyed. That was episode 11 or 10. That was episode 10 all done. We've got one more left of the Globalisation series. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learnt something. Please do let me know down below which topic you'd like to see next, and subscribe while you're down there, why not? I make these videos every single week. I will see you for the final instalment of the Globalisation series, same time, same place, Monday, 4:30 PM next week. Bye guys.